Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk algebra. Specifically, let's talk about variables and expressions. If you are keeping up on your vocabulary, which I hope you are, you're going to notice that the vocabulary for this lesson is these three words: the word variable, the word algebraic expression, and the word defining a variable or the phrase. Make sure you're taking a couple of minutes to add to your vocabulary section in your notebook so you don't fall behind there. So let's talk about algebra. This is what we're doing. We're doing variables. Specifically with algebraic expressions, all you really need to worry about is remembering some stuff from last year. When we're talking about an algebraic expression, we are talking about any expression that does not have an equal sign in it, but it does contain at least one variable and at least one mathematical operation. An operation is addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So please remember that when we're talking about a variable, we're talking about this guy right here, a letter. The letter is just used to represent a number that we don't know yet. And what I want to point out here is when you see this letter here, please remember that the letter is by itself. It does not include the operation that's in front of it. And that can get really tricky when you start working with negative numbers. So if you see a variable and you keep forgetting that the operation in front of it is not belonging to it, then maybe you want to throw in some parentheses. The other thing that they want me to emphasize in the book is that when you hit an expression like 5m, where you have a number attached to a variable, what they're talking about there is simply 5 times m. In the same way, when you see an expression like ab, they're simply talking about a times b. Nothing fancy there. And then when you see a fraction bar with a variable y divided by 3 or y over 3, that is self-explanatory. I know you guys know all this, but I have to say it anyways, just to make sure I'm covering my bases and talking to everybody in the class. Okay, let's work on something a little more difficult. It's the joy of the story problem, specifically defining a variable. All that you're doing when you're defining a variable is you're choosing a letter of the alphabet that you want to represent the unknown number in the story problem. And if you can define that variable, it makes it a whole lot easier to solve the story problem. There are 3 basic steps you can use. I'm also teaching you the radar technique, but once you've got that completely figured out and you know how not to make mistakes, then maybe you could try something simpler like this. Okay, step 1 is make sure that you are using only the most important words when you're describing the situation that you're presented. In this case, the situation is they're asking you to take a verbal phrase and turn it into a mathematical operation. Step 2 is to define a variable, which means just choose a letter of the alphabet to represent what you don't know, which is the unknown quantity. And then step 3 is to translate that variable and the other things described in the situation into a math problem, an algebraic expression. For example, take a look at Mary had $2 and made $6 an hour babysitting. If we were to break that down, that would be something along the lines of $2 more than $6 an hour. Now we've turned it into words. And I know it looks exactly the same as what it said first, but work with me here. As we're looking at these, break them into sections. The 2 more than represents one mathematical operation, and the $6 per hour represents a different mathematical operation, so try not to confuse them. Okay, next thing you're going to do is try to find a variable. What in this verbal expression is not named? In this case, what is not named is the number of hours. That's the one thing we don't know. So then all you have to do is say, let's let x equal the number of hours. because that's the one thing we don't know. Once you've done that, you can now turn it into a mathematical expression. 2 more than, as you've practiced earlier, just means 2 plus. $6 per hour is going to mean 6x, because x is the number of hours, and $6 per hour is 6 times the number of hours. So there is your mathematical expression. Now I know this is very simple, but when you get to the more complicated ones, you're going to be glad that you had this technique. Now it is your turn. Take something a little bit harder and see if you can convert it from words to a variable to an expression. Or if this is too easy for you, just define the variable and then write the expression, and let's see how you did. Go ahead and stop the video and do this. Okay, let's see how you did. For words, we have a company rents a houseboat for $200 plus an extra $30 per day. Like I taught you with radar, let us start circling and underlining the important stuff. I know that we have $200 plus. That seems important to me. And then the other thing that seems important to me is $30 per day. So these seem to be the 2 words that are most important. Okay, you're also going to take a look at the question that's being asked. It says, write an expression that can be used to find the total cost to rent a houseboat. It never hurts to underline or circle what's being asked. Find the total cost. And then in order to find the total cost, you're going to have to define a variable. What is the one thing in these words that we don't know? And what we don't know is the number of days. So we are going to let D equal the number of days. Now that you've got this written as variables and you've got the words figured out, it's simply a matter of turning it into a mathematical equation. So we've got 200 plus, that's simply a plus sign instead of the word. And then per day is going to mean $30 times the number of days, which we don't know, which is going to be 30D. Pretty simple. Okay, now we're moving on to evaluating expressions, and I know you're really comfortable with this because this is just plugging numbers in for letters, but there are a couple of places where people tend to mess up, and I want to point those out. The first thing I'm going to point out is that I made a major boo-boo on the very first expression. It should not be saying D plus F minus 18. It should be saying D plus F minus, or D plus 5 minus F, which is frustrating, and I don't know why things are moving around, and I just love modern technology, so work with me here, people. Oh, see, now it's all green, so what the heck. I'm still learning how to use this program. That should be D plus 5 minus F. And all I wanted to point out here is that when you write it as an actual expression, before I was messing it up royally, is that the negative sign does not, in fact, go with that F. It's going to be D plus 5 minus, and then put in the 18 for the F, if you would, please. And again, think about what would happen if this 18 was a negative number. What if it was at negative 18? Would you accidentally drop your negative sign? All right, take a look at the next 2 problems, and I'm pretty sure I didn't mess those up. Evaluate each expression if R equals 1, S equals 5, and T equals 8. Write these 2 down on the input side of your notebook and try to solve them. Stop the video and start it up again when you think you've got the right answer. Okay, so we've got S times T over 20. Okay, the phone just rang, so I had to stop the video, so I'm starting it again, and I'm hoping you figured out ST divided by 20. This is order of operations, my friends, which is why I threw this one in here. Please remember that it is S times T first, then divided by 20. So S is going to be 5, T is going to be 8. We're going to figure that out first, then we're going to divide by 20. So if you do that, you are going to get 40 divided by 20, which is 2. Gosh, I hope I got that right. And then R plus, open parentheses, 40 minus 3T, close parentheses. We're going to plug everybody in first, and then let us figure out what to do. R is 1 plus 40 minus, and then we have 3T. That is going to be 3 times 8. You notice I put brackets there. It's because when you see something like 3T or a number times a variable, these guys are grouped, so you do have to deal with them first. All right, take a look at the whole problem, and you're going to see that we're going to deal with 3 times 8 first, then we're going to deal with the 40, and then finally we're going to add the 1 at the very end because that one is not in the parentheses. So you should have gotten 1 plus 40 minus 24, and that should lead to 1 plus 16, which equals 17. All right. Thank you for your patience. You would not believe the garbage that I went through to try to get this video together, but the only way for me to relearn how to make these videos is to keep practicing, and practicing. So I think I'm getting an idea of how you feel about this. Have a good night, guys. Bye.